like literally do a podcast that has Jocko Willink on it, and he was talking about, it's a good question. Eric Steinman asked him about culture in the military, and okay, that's interesting by itself. But what it got me thinking about is something that has been on the back of my mind a lot. Although I haven't had the words to talk about it. Although I just haven't. And it's that as a pastor of a Missouri Synod congregation, right, trying to help us figure out how to engage the present age, how to survive, the collapse of nonprofit institutions, at least ones like ours, all that kind of stuff. What is it about us that makes us so culturally ingrained? We are culturally ingrained to think and act in certain ways. And I don't know how to even express that. I mean, if you're just an attendee at an LCMS church, you might never in a million years think this. But we have a very, very specific set of expectations and or patterns. I think a lot of pastors don't think about it either. I hadn't, but I'm having to now. And I don't know what's making me do this. Maybe it's just reading books about management and moving organizations, and the fact that they all recognize organizations always have a culture, good or bad, and that a lot of what happens is a result of, and then a production of that culture. Okay, fine, whatever. So, but the question I have is, so why is it so hard for Missouri Synod Lutherans to bring in non-Missouri Synod Lutheran culture? We're xenophobic, right? We're not racist. We're xenophobic. We're afraid of the different. We're afraid of change. I talked about tattoos on the podcast last week, and our failure to become ethnically diverse as a church body is part of this. It's not racism. You don't have a bunch of people who hate other races in the Missouri Synod. You have a bunch of people who don't like anything that's not exactly what they expect, which means no change, which is everything from let's keep making the worst coffee in the history of the world and calling it coffee, even though nobody drinks it anymore, in the same pot we haven't cleaned for 50 years. Everything from that to, who is this person? They don't look normal to me. They're not like what I'm used to. What do I make of this? So what is that? It's certainly not the fact that we're Germans. I'll give this guy a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thumbs up, man. Happy day. Happy day. He flipped me off because that's what cool people do. I give a thumbs up. Try to kill me? You know what? We should not do that. All right, continue going. What a jerk. That's scary, by the way. I mean, think about it, man. That's your livelihood. If you ever see this, I don't think you will. That's your livelihood, man. That's how you make a living, is that truck. What are you doing? I mean, and killing me? You know what that does? You go to jail. You got kids, man. Come on. I get it. You wanted to be first in line. I get it. It's okay. I'm sorry for cutting you off. I apologize. I didn't really cut you off. I apologize for going faster because I thought you were going to go slower and get in front of you. But that's really a bad reason to crash your work vehicle that you own because it looks like you're privately owned. Bad idea, man. Bad idea. Anyway, culture. What in your culture made you do that? I mean, I get angry. I got some road rage. I do. I'm like, that guy, he's but to try to do something to you with my moving vehicle, that's called terrorism, man. That's nuts. Anyhow, so it's not Germanism. Because Germans are innovators. They like change. I'm not talking about the guy. I'm talking about church. Germans are innovators. Germans are great producers of change, historically. So then, what is it? Also, by the way, the anti-authoritarianism of Missouri Synod congregations, that's not German. That's American. It's very American. And what do I mean by that? I mean that rather than consider that not most efficient, forget that the only way to operate a nonprofit business is by having someone who runs it. As opposed to having, 7, 8 different boards of directors of various different groups of non-volunteers, so that the boards of directors are doing all the work themselves, but they're not, which is why nothing's getting done. Anyway, we resist thinking about the ideas because we just are against authority itself. That's a cultural-driven thing. That's not a Bible-driven thing. That's not theology. That's a culture-driven thing. What is it? What is it? We're so insular. And you would think, oh, well, that's just one congregation. No. This is something, I've been in too many congregations now. I apologize to the church for having had too many calls. I hope that I've done good in each one I've been in, but no one, I think, comes out of seminary wanting as many as I had in a short time. But along with that, and vicarage, and traveling to speak places, and all this, I've seen a lot of the ground. And we are so insular. We don't see outside of ourselves. We are so different. And it's not like we're not Americans. We go turn on the TV. We go to our jobs. This is part of our insularness, though. We don't talk about what happens at church. It's like Fight Club, only it's not like Fight Club. Yeah? The one rule about Missouri Synod Church is don't talk about Missouri Synod Church. Right? Really, it's almost like it is. We're so insular. And then with that, we're so afraid of change. And I'm all for, I get where it's like, we don't change the doctrine, right? The Word of God is the Word of God. And liturgy, as a heritage and a tradition, is a scaffolding at the very least that should never change. It's just too good. We're not going to improve on what it's doing. But that's not a reason to not have an ability to recognize there are people not like you in your city. Various cultures, lots of them. They're really different. And they're not going to join your culture in order to join your church. That's the issue. I don't even know what our culture is to define it. That's what I'm struggling with. What is it? It's not German. I don't think it's what it is. It's not American. It's Missouri Synodism. What is it? What caused it? What's its roots? And really, how do we change it? How do we get in and, what's it, socially engineer? I don't want to socially engineer stuff, but I do want to recategorize the manner in which we think about our congregations. I'll give you this. Our culture as Missouri Synod congregations is the culture of a club. Is the culture of a club. It is not the culture of a nonprofit business organized in order to spread the gospel. It's not that. And hear the gospel, I should say, right? To receive the gospel. But it's not that at all. And it is not the culture of what? A spiritual assembly engendered to dwell richly in the Word of God? No, it's not that either. I'm sorry, it's not. There are things, but most pastors are fighting uphill against the club. And you know what? This is maybe more spot on than I realized, because there's something I've seen as well in a number of congregations. This isn't the only one. There's one here too, but one of the things I've seen, it's getting long. One of these things I've seen is clubs. And there's a couple that are everywhere. There's one in particular, it's really big in some ways, everywhere, but in almost every congregation it's not really big. It's really small. But they're not alone. There's another one that's like them that now mostly doesn't exist in most congregations. They still have some money somehow and whatnot, but as a big organization, but they're more or less a dead body so far as the congregations are concerned. And I remember that was my first introduction to that group, was not by their name, but I remember on my vicarage, right, your internship as a pastor, your third year of seminary, I walk in and within a week, I had this, I remember his name, Virgil. Virgil. This little guy named Virgil. It was a very kind man, by the way, but a little different. I wasn't ready for oh, hi, Virgil, you're not like me, right? Everyone must be like me. And so figuring out who this guy was took me a little bit. But he's standing, and I walks up. He's standing beside me in the handshake line one day. I'm shaking hands behind the guy who's my boss and all this stuff. And there's this guy just standing there, and he's just staring at me. And I finally look at him, I go, what what's up? He says, are you coming to men's club? Are you coming to men's club? I left off the S. Are you coming to men's club? Like, it wasn't a hello. It wasn't, hey, there's this thing called men's club. We don't talk about men's club. It wasn't any of that. It was just, are you coming? Like I knew about it, right? Which I'm just got in the door. How do I know about it? So I think I said something like, sure, probably. I figure, you know. But see, this is it. What was men's club? Men's club. Think about it. Men's club was the men of the church. It was only like once or twice a year. They had like a barbecue. It was cool. I mean, they ate food and stuff. It was awkward. Didn't feel like they all really wanted to be there in the way. I mean, it was like at a park. It wasn't at someone's house. There was no alcohol. I mean, it wasn't like a barbecue. It was like a church potluck barbecue for men only. Men's club. All right, so in a lot of towns, there are also, and this isn't just about Missouri, but this is about an older American culture. In a lot of places in the U.S., a lot of cities, you'll find ethnic clubs. German club. So there's a German club in town. I got nothing against them. But they also are struggling to find membership for German club. They do something every month. They bring in some pretty decent polka music. They have beer, some potluck. And we enjoyed it when we went. It's tough to, like, one Saturday night a month go do something that's not your thing. I am German, half. But it's not like my thing to be German. Probably because it's been beaten out of me by the anti-Anglo Americana at this point. But in any case, my point is more that the club there, see, to go to the German club, you have to be like the German club. You're not going to go to the German club if you're not German. Not in blood. I'm German in blood. Got plenty of that. I'm not really German in culture. Yeah? And so I don't want to join the club. You know who really figured this one out better was the Italians. We got 3 places in town that one of them's even called the Venetian Club. There's 2 others. They should consolidate because they're all struggling too. But they at least open bars. Like they're like the Knights of Columbus. They're like, oh, we'll just have a bar for our club. I mean, I'm just thinking business, right? But they're still struggling. Why is that? Why are clubs struggling? That's a good question. And then, why is the Missouri Synod a club? That's a better question, I think. You can't answer the second till you answer the first. And you can't just walk around. I've heard pastors do this. Oh, club mentality. That's the club mentality. We gotta get out of the club mentality. Okay, you diagnosed it. What's the answer? There's a root to this thing, and it's not you shouting club mentality outpost from the pulpit. That ain't gonna do it, man. That ain't gonna do it. But there is something that does need to be diagnosed deeper within the social, spiritual fabric of the congregations of the Missouri Synod to, in some way, re-identify our actual mission. Now, I use that word very carefully because, frankly, it's been abused to death. I'm not talking about how each church has its own little private mission. I'm talking about how each Christian is Jesus' mission. Jesus apostolic. Jesus coming to save, right? What does that mean? What does that look like as a group, as an ecclesiology, as an ingathering of the people of God into the sacrament, into the mystery of His body? Why don't we think that's what we're about every Sunday? I know, maybe you do. You're watching the show. But hey, I'm going to tell you, you go do a survey. Ask your pastor, can I do a survey of church? One question. Why do you come to church on Sunday? Put the sacrament on there. Don't tell everyone that's supposed to be the answer. Just put it on there. See what you get. Less than 25%. That's my guess. Good congregation, well catechized, 45, 50 maybe. You'll at least get more than one answer, which is fine if you put the Word of God in there, the hymns. Those are good reasons to come too. But I bet you get the people as an answer a lot. Maybe more than the sacrament. And that, well, it's a club, ain't it? Yeah. That's what I'm thinking about. Why do I care? Why do I want to change the club? Well, I don't want the club to die, I guess, but it's not because I think the club's so awesome as a club itself. I think that mission of Jesus to the world is, it saved my life. Saved my mind. I don't want to keep it to myself. And that's just not the Missouri Synod way. Not right now, it ain't. I know we pay some organizations to say they're doing stuff. I know, I get it. And we give a couple guys who are missionaries to actually go do some stuff, but not a lot. I mean, they do a lot of stuff. There are not a lot of them. We're so quiet. We're so quiet.